Panelists, can I ask that you turn on your mics and your videos and we can get started? Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I hope that everyone is doing really well with all that's happening in the world right now. I'm Christine Shao, the Managing Director of the STEAMS Initiative, and I'm really grateful to be here with you guys today. Just a reminder that there's going to be a Q&A after the discussion, so if you feel inspired by what we're talking about or have any other questions, you should submit them at the bottom of the screen and we'll be sure to get to them at the end of the conversation. Also, if you like what you're hearing today, please join the conversation online. You can tag us on our Twitter handle. It's @StevensInit. That's @StevensINIT. And you can use the hashtag #WorldClassConnection. So before I introduce our speakers and before we begin, I wanted to give a broad overview of the STEAMS Initiative and the ways to engage with virtual exchange through our program. At the STEAMS Initiative, we believe that all youth should have a global learning experience that provides them an opportunity to gain the knowledge and the skills and the experiences that they need to prosper in today's world. Virtual exchange can help meet this need because by its very nature, it's accessible, being online, as well as flexibility in its design. Virtual exchange is collaborative, online, sustained communication between participants that engage as a facilitator. So there's a lot of variety in how virtual exchange can happen. I think one of the examples of that is flexibility, which is particularly relevant right now with everything that's occurring because it can occur inside or outside of the classroom. You'll have a better understanding of what that means once we get into discussion. You'll hear some of the uniqueness of each of the programs and how that happens inside and outside of the classroom. One thing that I'll say is that a commonality in all of our work is that we believe that these virtual exchange experiences are giving the necessary competencies to help shape our youth into our future leaders. So while there's distinction in our work, there's also commonality, and that's because I think we all believe that we're helping to shape our youth into our future leaders. The initiative work focuses our efforts in 3 areas to help grow the virtual exchange field. Those areas of work are grant making, our knowledge development and knowledge sharing, as well as our advocacy work. I'm going to leave it there in terms of speaking about the initiative because I really want to focus more on the programs and the panelists that we have here, but I encourage you to check out our website. It's at www.steamsinitiative.org for more information. The one thing that I do want to highlight though is that the STEAMS Initiative recognizes that there are different levels of virtual exchange readiness. And we have a variety of pathways to meet the needs of, the more seasoned practitioner to someone who is brand new to the concept of virtual exchange. So last fall, we announced 5 pathways to become involved in our work. And today what we're going to do is focus on one of those pathways, called the Join a Program pathway. I think that this is an excellent opportunity for anyone to get involved in virtual exchange because of the relative ease of joining the program. An interested organization or person can kind of benefit from that existing infrastructure that's in place through these implementing partners already. Our 4 speakers represent 4 unique initiative-funded programs that, again, your school or institution or person can join. So each speaker is going to share more about their program, but you can learn more about them on our projects page. So it's linked on www.stevensinitiative.org for more information about their projects. So with that, I want to introduce our panelists. We have Aisha from Solia, Christina from World Learning, Corinne from the Global Nomads Group, and Lindsay from IREX. Just a reminder that their full bios are included in the email that we sent out earlier to you. So instead of kind of going in depth on their backgrounds, we really wanted to use this as an opportunity to give kind of a brief description of their program. And so I will open it up for Aisha, if you want to speak a little bit about your program, we can just go around the table.
Sounds good. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Aisha Arıyoruk. I'm the Director of Partnerships and Communication at Solia, based in New York City. Solia is an international non-for-profit organization which uses an interactive technology and a scientific approach to dialogue to offer cross-cultural exchange and learning. which means there's a custom design web-based conferencing platform which we use to bring thousands of university students together in small groups of 10 or face-to-face conversations, and the participants come from North America, Europe, North Africa, Middle East, and Southeast Asia.
Christina, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hi, everyone. I'm Christina Thomas. I'm the Divisional Vice President of Youth Exchanges at World Learning. And traditionally, the Experiment in International Living has been operating traditional study abroad programs for 88 years. And we're excited to have our digital platform called the Experiment Digital. And what that is and what we're doing, it's an interactive exchange program online where students can learn how to be civically more engaged in their communities by learning how to design projects, specifically community service projects in their local communities. The project is 8 weeks long in the summertime. Students commit to 4 hours a week, and they learn about leadership and identity, civic engagement, and they interact with their peers through facilitated videos, chats, games, webinars. And our program is open to students, high school age students from the United States, Algeria, Iraq, and Yemen. And that's that, Experiment Digital. Thanks, Christina.
Thanks, Christina. Corinne?
Hi, everyone. My name is Corinne, and I'm an Associate Program Manager at Global Nomads Group, or G&G for short. I'm really glad to be with you here virtually today. So our program is Campfire, and it's actually made up of 2 programs for middle and high school age students, so 12 to 18-year-olds. One of the programs is called Collaborating Classrooms, and the other program is called Student to World. So both are, campfire programs. They're evoking this feeling of gathering around a campfire, but virtually. So each program offers a storytelling curriculum and an online course experience where students are logging on and engaging with their global peers in global content. We work with schools and educators and youth orgs to implement, can be in school, out of school, or after school, core and elective classes. It's pretty flexible. Yeah, and I'm excited to kind of relay a bit more about each program as we continue.
Lindsay, thanks.
Great. Yeah, so yeah, welcome. My name is Lindsay Powers. I'm a Senior Program Officer with IREX in the Global Solution Sustainability Challenge program. And the program is a virtual exchange initiative that provides access for community college students in the US and university students in Iraq and Jordan through basically an authentic cross-cultural collaboration opportunity that models the modern workplace. It goes through a 6 or 10-week challenge curriculum where students are paired with US and Jordan or US and Iraq, and they work to develop a binational business concept that is that's something that they submit at the end. They work through the human-centered design process, and they're working to develop a solution to a real need in their community, and it helps develop problem-solving skills and cross-cultural collaboration. Yeah.
All right, yeah, that's fantastic. I think it's really interesting to hear just very briefly from you guys kind of the uniqueness, the distinctness of your program. So we can jump into some questions now. I heard a few of you guys mention the role of kind of the educator, the facilitator in your description. So I would love to hear, and I think our participants would love to hear from each of you, given the uniqueness of your programs. Tell us the role of the educator, facilitator, but more illustrate it kind of like what's the day-to-day like for them. And anyone can jump in. I think Christine is unmuted if you wanted to start.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Thanks, Christine. Yeah. Well, what's great about the Experiment Digital, everything's facilitated. Our facilitators are youth. What means our facilitation is youth leading youth, and I think that really goes nicely with our whole leadership theory and trying to promote youth leadership in this and more engagement and awareness in their communities. And our facilitators Typically, most, if not many, have participated in our programs, either traditional or digital. And so therefore, they've been through an exchange experience and can relate to students who are participating on this program. They go through a robust 1-month facilitation training online for the Experiment Digital. And day to day, they commit up to 6 to 8 hours a week. They are facilitating small and large group dialogue sessions. For example, a facilitator would lead a group of 5 students in a more intentional, curated curriculum to talking about gender and stereotypes, leadership and identity, sharing personal stories. And in addition to that, they also will facilitate group activities with students up to, for students up to 20 to 25 students at a time. So that's, and again, they're there to support the students, answer their questions, and kind of lead them through this dynamic process.
That's great. Christina, did you say again that the 6 to 8 hours a week that they commit is as a facilitator?
Yes, as a facilitator, exactly.
Right. And then there's a training that they go to beforehand. Is that right?
That's correct. 1 month long online training before they participate, or before they facilitate, rather. Sorry.
Yeah, great. Anyone else? Aisha, did you want to go?
Yes, I want to briefly mention the 4 unique aspects of our learning before I talk about the experience of the educators. So we use a dialogue model. Dialogues are not debates. In debates, winner takes all. In dialogue, everybody wins. The first step to mutual understanding is that every group has a legitimate interest in cultural expression, and that's why we do that. Secondly, as many of us do here, our sessions are led by trained facilitators and not teachers. The role of a teacher and a facilitator are very different. Facilitators cannot influence content, they influence process. Facilitators ask questions, they don't provide answers. And that brings me to the third point, our learning goals. The learning goals are centered around skill acquisition and attitudinal change and behavioral shift, and not on content or subject matter expertise. And finally, because we are doing all of this through technology, we pay close attention to technology's influence on our learning and on our communication. Technology is not a neutral communication and learning tool, and that is reflected in our curriculum and the design of the platform. What is the role of an educator and how their day-to-day experience is like? The educator's roles have 2 distinct, I think they have 2 distinct roles that comes into play at different stages. At the initial stages, our educators, we depend on our educators for their leadership within the institution to help secure the necessary buy-in from the administrations. Again, we're in the higher education space. We work with universities and colleges so that we can integrate the program in an accredited course. And once we have the green light from the university, we then and also identify a course for integration, and we work with the educators who are teaching that course for academic integration. During implementation, the educators will receive regular reporting from our students from their students' performance and participation, and then they continue to meet with their classes during the regular hours and reflect as a group on students' individual experiences.
Yeah. Corinne or Lindsay?
Yeah.
Corinne? Okay.
Sure, I'll jump in. Yeah, so for us educators are facilitating the program. They're there to support student learning, and that can look kind of different depending on the program. So for collaborating classrooms, it's for global educators in a group together. So their 4 classes are in the same online course. So they're kind of during the same time period over the course of a semester implementing the same curriculum. So the educators are leading their students through 6 lessons. After each lesson, students post their story assignments for their global peers to engage with. They engage in dialogue on discussion forums. And kind of the culmination is students write a personal story that they then share at a story share event where they have the option, they can read their own story and also the story of one of their global peers. So they really get to be in the shoes of their global peers. So this collaborating classrooms model is a bit more traditional teacher-student style, presenting classroom lessons and coordinating with G&G staff and the other peer educators. And then student to world can be this more traditional model, or it can be more personalized learning. So the role of the educator is quite flexible. Students work at a self-guided pace in student to world. They work through 4 modules that take about 3 hours each. And there's no kind of interdependency in terms of time on other global peers. The exchange is happening through stories. So students read global peer stories online in the platform, and that's how they're inspired and how they engage in writing their own, which then becomes part of the library. And I also wanted to mention that Student to World has 3 curricular themes, so 3 options for educators to choose from. One is art in action, the second is ocean health, and the third is global hunger. So these are each their own curriculum, kind of follow the same thing, it's just a different global topic. And we also have, an online training course for educators, pre-implementation, can be implemented on their own time. And that really kind of helps define for educators what their role will be in their own situation.
Right, and so those are, again, just 2 unique programs within G&G, the classroom one and more the student to world one. Is the role of facilitating the student to world, it's similar then, or can you explain that just one more time, Corinne?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's up to the educator. It does allow for a bit more hands-off, so students can work on their own with educator guidance, of course, but it's less kind of this classroom-based program.
Great, thank you. And Lindsay.
Yeah, sure. So with the Global Solutions Program, facilitators or faculty members at the institution are facilitating their students through the challenge using the provided curriculum. Really in the beginning, they're recruiting their student-led team of up to 8 students or more students than that. And they are basically facilitating their team that we hope is student-led and student-driven through the provided activities within the curriculum. Since teams are binational, so you'd have a US facilitator or faculty member paired with either Jordan or Iraq. And so a faculty member or the facilitator would be collaborating and connecting with their partner facilitator in the other country and ensuring that their team is moving through the curriculum at the same level, at the same pace. What that looks like is setting up the virtual exchanges for their students and then supporting their students actually having those virtual exchanges, as well as the curriculum is not just the synchronous virtual exchange that's happening in the week, but also a lot of asynchronous. So students are collaborating on Slack, they're collaborating on WhatsApp, and to complete the different weekly milestone activities. So the facilitator's role is really to ensure that each of the students on the team is engaged and is engaging with their binational team and helping to complete the different weekly activities that moves them towards that final submission at the end of the curriculum.
I think it's such a good point, Lindsay, because I think oftentimes when we think about the role of the facilitator, we think about just the synchronous, the face-to-face communication, but there's a huge role for the facilitator or the educator, or who, if they're wearing the same hats, for that asynchronous. And probably more than anything, I think a lot of us would agree that that's where a lot of the work happens, to make sure that people are staying engaged, doing their lessons plans, communicating with each other. So it's so interesting, I think, to hear the different roles that they play with each of your different programs. But I think one thing is clear is that they're super important to any virtual exchange. I think that's a definite here. I heard a lot of you, I think Christina mentioned it, and Lindsay as well, kind of the importance of it kind of being student-driven and student-led, which is like kind of the other side of this, which is talk to us a little bit about what is that day-to-day experience like for someone who participates in one of your programs. I think that's probably the most interesting, if anything, to kind of hear about from your guys' perspectives. And maybe this time we can start, I know Lindsay, you just talked, but maybe you can start again.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So our students, again, as we mentioned, are working through this provided curriculum. So there's very specific activities for them to complete each week as a national team, and then also as a binational team. So students are working through this human-centered design process where they're going out, they're starting with empathy, they're engaging in interviews in the community to understand what are the needs in the community. They're doing that in pairs or in individual. And specifically in the US and Iraq or US Jordan, and then they move on to the phase of defining a problem collaboratively together as a binational team. Once they define that problem that they're going to solve together as a team, they ideate and create a solution, a sustainable solution for that problem. They're doing this, again, as we mentioned, through this asynchronous and synchronous collaboration throughout the week. So an hour, for example, for a synchronous call in the week, and then they're texting each other on Slack, and they're connecting with each other on individual video calls to complete different activities throughout the week. And then they're working their way through to creating a prototype and writing a business concept and a video pitch to then submit at the end. And then compete in this virtual business expo that culminates the challenge. So it's this mix of asynchronous, synchronous. They're having these individual calls with their partner in Jordan or Iraq. They're talking about culture. They're talking about the actual challenge, the business concept, as well as having these team calls where they're all together collaborating on the challenge.
It's great. So great. Christina, did you want to go?
Yeah. Thank you, Christine. Well, as many of you, I have not mentioned this before, but it's an open enrollment program. So our students come from all over the communities of the U.S., Iraq, Algeria, and Yemen. So they're not in classrooms or clusters per se. But what's great about this program is that students, they go through 4 learning modules. Module 1. And this is all in group work. As I mentioned before, they do activities in groups of 20 to 25, and then the dialogue groups are smaller with facilitated in groups of 5. But in our learning modules, students look at digital citizenship. What does it look like to analyze the root cause of of problems going on in their community? They're looking at leadership and identity. And how to address their communities into a problem statement. They're looking at also learning about community initiatives and how to collaboratively brainstorm solutions together. And also the next and last module is the public narrative. How do you put your ideas and concepts into an action plan? And at any time, our students are required to work 4 hours a week, and at any time they can watch a video to learn about what's going on, what the root causes are of an issue, and that could be like 5 minutes of their time. They could also share their perspective from their local community, why homelessness, for example, is an issue in the larger group dialogues. They share photos as prompted by their facilitators. Share your favorite store in your community or your favorite food. And in their neighborhood groups of 20 to 25, they do activities like, what are the 3 best items to keep if your boat was sinking? And that's really an activity there, about an hour activity where students have to work together collaboratively online to build and use their leadership and team building skills. They also will have opportunities to listen and participate in webinars from community activists and leaders. We have speakers that come in to address specific thematic issues. And then, of course, they have their video chat where they are with their facilitator and their dialogue group, which becomes kind of what we call, your family. So you can have those intimate and serious conversations about peace building or gender issues.
That's so great. A lot of simulators, I think, and hearing, again, different programs, but the importance of the learning happens in the classroom, or quote unquote the classroom, but it's really what happens outside the classroom, taking these ideas and the actions and turning these youth into, implementing on their solutions to these problems they've identified. So really, really key components. Corinne, did you want to share a little bit?
Yeah, gladly. So I'd love to kind of share an example of what it looks like for a student. So let's take student to world and ocean health as an example. So what I would do as a middle or high school student, whether I'm in a classroom or in an after school program or at home, I would log into our online platform, which is hosted on Canvas LMS. And I would, go into my course, navigate to the course modules. And the first ocean health module is called Everyday Plastics. So kind of in each module follows the same sequence. So what I do first is I'd read, or I can listen to a voice recording of the mini lesson about the topic. Then I would, step 2, explore some global resources. So the student can really click through different articles from different regions in the world, different videos, to kind of explore more about the topic. Then the students explore our Global Peer Stories library. So this is stories written by their global peers. It's actually kind of prior assignments to the same module, but they're now in this library. And the last step is that I, as a student, would write my own story. In this example, it would be a story about a plastic item that I find in my everyday life, and kind of connecting that to the stories I've read of my global peers, making comparisons, contrasting, and making connections. And then once that's submitted, the G&G staff reviews it, and it becomes part of the Global Peer Stories library. So I think what's really cool about this is that youth are really learning from their global peers. They're learning about these global issues from people their age, young people their age, instead of just, from a textbook or random searches on the internet. So yeah, that's what the first module looks like. Then it goes into local community, then it goes to global community, and then the last module is all about taking action. So students write a community action plan. So yeah, that's just a little window in.
Awesome. Thank you, Corinne. And Aisha?
So our student experience starts at the registration phase at the Exchange, on our platform, namely the Exchange portal. They go to a website that we provide them to create a password and username. They don't need to download any software. Then they're led through a self-diagnostic tech test. Once they pass through the tech test, then they indicate their time of and day and time of preference for the meetings, as we're bringing together students from across different states within the US and also different countries for face-to-face conversations live. It's a bit of a scheduling feast. We use a web-based tool designed to place users from different time zones into balanced groups using a configurable algorithm so that we're able to do this efficiently. We don't spend human time doing it. Once they're identified and placed into a group, they're assigned into a virtual room. So based on the time and the preference of their date of their preference, they will go to their virtual room as they would go to a classroom. During the course of the program, Connect Global US MENA is the module we offer under the Stevens Initiative, and that runs for 8 weeks, 2 hours each. So on that specific day, they will go to that room and they will meet their peers that's also assigned to that group. During the course of the 8 weeks, what will they do? There's a set curriculum, discussion topics for each week, an activity set for each week. As all of you mentioned, our programs are also student-led learning. Students have a lot of room to influence the discussion topics and what they want to discuss that day. The activities remain the same, and the activities are geared towards enhancing their understanding around their biases, helping them to gain emotional awareness, offering practical sort of conflict resolution tools, and then they have some assignments. The reading assignments are very little. There's a group project that they need to conduct community interviews and make a video and upload it on YouTube and share with their communities and so on and so forth. These are all sort of tools to get to communicate and collaborate with one another.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Aisha. I just want to let our panelists know we have a limited amount of time left to kind of go through some of the questions that I know that we wanted to get through. So I think what we'll do instead is I'm just going to switch it up a little bit and maybe just ask you guys directly instead of going around the table and answering every single one of the questions. And so I think in line with that, follow up to that, which is the student experience, talking more about how to incentivize participant engagement. And so Lindsay, can you just share a little bit from your side what that looks like for IREX's program?
Yeah, sure. So for Global Solutions, it's actually some faculty members actually implement it as a part of the course that they have on campus. And so if that's the case, students do receive credit for participating in the challenge, within their institution. That's a great incentive for community college students and for university students. However, with the program, we have found that there's something that students are super excited about, is something called Yes Badges. Yes Badges are youth essential skills that IREX has developed. And it's a set of these skills that are the soft skills, the skills that employers are looking for in those that they're going to hire these days. And they are something that as they move throughout the challenge, students will receive badges for the specific skills that they are learning, such as adaptability, entrepreneurial thinking, cross-cultural collaboration. So students throughout the challenge are receiving these badges through Badger. They can then directly link these to their CV, their LinkedIn profiles, and it provides them very specific language on the skills that they are developing throughout the challenge that they can then use in future interviews and as they're looking to get jobs. And we have found that students are very thrilled about that as a way to actually communicate the skills that they're learning throughout the challenge. So that's one incentive that we have is these Yes Badges.
That's great to hear. And then I would like to hear from you as well, Christina, because of the uniqueness of your program, being that it's outside of the classroom, so to speak. And then Corinne and Aisha, what I'd like to ask you after Christina answers is, how do the educators and facilitators, how are they helping to meet larger learning goals? That's the question we'll follow up with next. So Christina, a little bit about how you incentivize participation.
Well, yeah, thanks, Christine. I think, we're a high school program, and we run in the summer, right in the height of the summer especially for our US students, flexibility is key. Their demand for their time is extremely competitive now between SAT camps and travel, family travel, sports. So I think the incentive for these students is really the 4 hours. It's 4 hours out of their time. They can incorporate it in their summer programs and plans. And their incentive is that they get to do their sports program and their SAT camp and also talk to students internationally that they never would have been able to do before from Yemen, Iraq, and Algeria. So incentive is there. They can incorporate this into their day-to-day structure. And I think for our MENA students, which I think all of our panelists and my colleagues here agree with, is that they come from a very traditional education system, and that skills and a certificate is really key for them because they don't get a lot of non-formal education training. So building leadership skills, dialogue skills, and getting the certificate at the end of the program enables them to go on and build their portfolio to go on to new programs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for our participants listening, a key distinction here between what Lindsay and Christina are saying is they have two different audience, basically, two different participants, one who is at the post-secondary level, one who is at the high school level. Right. And so understanding what motivates them is extremely important for any virtual exchange program. Obviously for the post-secondary, employability is going to be key. And I think aligning interest maybe more at the high school level to encourage participation, whether it's sports or whatnot, is a useful tool as well. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So Corinne and Aisha, one of the things that we hear all the time in conversations is that there's a lot of competing priorities for the educator or the facilitator. So can you guys talk to us briefly about, from where you guys sit, how does a virtual exchange program, your virtual exchange program, help these educators or facilitators meet larger learning goals? Aisha, I think you want to, or Corinne, please.
Yeah, so I think it's important to stress that programs are multidisciplinary, so they really can be incorporated into different subject themes and different environments, especially, you know, student to world, truly on different themes, so kind of works with different subjects. And, you know, our programs, and I'm sure others, are standards aligned, so aligned to ELA or Next Generation Science Standards, the Asia Society Global Competencies, 21st Century Skills, causal social and emotional learning, and the UN SDGs. And we've also worked to help provide supports for English language learning. Our programs, students are engaged in dialogue in English, so it's a great opportunity for those learning English to practice English, you know, through our programs. And one more thing I'll note, I think, you know, larger learning goals are super important right now in the state of the world. Perhaps your learning goal is just to engage students in productive education right now. And so again, you know, a program like Student to World is an opportunity to kind of include global content and global engagement in your distance learning plan.
Absolutely. I was going to say it if you didn't say that, Corinne, because it's so true, especially for the Student the World one. And Aisha, we are right at 12:40, so we're going to be turning to Q&A, but still wanted to give you an opportunity to answer that question as well.
Yes, sure. So our curriculum is also multidisciplinary, and we integrate, connect global to business schools, to engineering schools, to humanities, and we're not just providing an environment for cross-cultural collaboration, but cross-functional collaboration where the young people are equipped with the skills and attitudes to deal across any difference. Facilitators, I mentioned the role of our facilitators. They are there to ask questions, not provide answers. By then, they provide they provide student ownership and autonomy, so that students are able to take charge and an ownership of the group that they're leading. They are learning to acquire skills like reaching consensus on it means agreeing on a discussion topic that day. The facilitators also help navigate through difficult interpersonal dynamics that might surface at the time. And as everybody else, we are also pursuing skills and attitudes that are associated with global competency.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. We're going to jump into a bit of Q&A right now. I hope my mic is unmuted. Okay, I am. We've got a couple of questions that have come in around the implications of coronavirus that's having on schools and students and post-secondary and all of these. So maybe this is a nice broad question just to ask each one of you or whoever wants to respond. What role can virtual exchange practitioners and facilitators play right now connecting youth in the US with their peers in other countries as we move forward during this time?
I think we have a special responsibility right now by having these experience and expertise in providing education by using technology, and virtual exchange has a unique methodology to it. You know, it's not, virtual exchange is not MOOCs. It's meant to be interactive, and that is what the world needs, is because of the barriers on physical barriers are intensified at a time when people need to actually communicate, share information. There's essential information out there between countries that are experiencing isolation, that are facing this pandemic, and different governments are responding and communities are responding differently. There's so much misinformation out there in terms of what communities should be doing. Even the scientists don't seem to be speaking on the same note.
Sure.
And just as this happened on Monday, we launched our semester, and we're about to connect 8,000 students across different countries for face-to-face conversations. So at a time like this, when students get that authentic information, knowledge from, not from the media, and there's no agenda, from someone who's in isolation, from someone who's affected, can tell, this is what my community responded. This is when how I use a mask, and this is I get tested or I don't get tested. This is why I'm not leaving the home. And then they share it with one another, and they're able to not just share information, get to the source of the information, but also achieves something that's so important, that human connection.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that we have to identify, is that social distancing, it doesn't have to be social distancing from socializing. It's just physical distancing. And we
Right.
can use video conferencing technology like the way we're doing right now to fill the gap in that need for human connection.
Agreed, Aisha. Thank you. Thank you so much. Did anyone else have a thought on this? We have many questions we can get through, but if you feel so inspired, please do.
Well, Christine, I just wanted to mention that we are a summer program. So if, I really hope, who knows what's going to happen this summer or the year. So I just wanted to encourage everyone, if you don't have summer plans, the Experiment Digital's open enrollment is going on now for the summer. It starts June 22nd, going for 8 weeks. And so take a look and at our website, experimentdigital.org. Sorry, that's org. We're a nonprofit. And take a look so you can kind of figure out how to incorporate these kinds of learning and during the summer. And I'm sure my other colleagues might have other opportunities throughout the year, but I just want to say, if you don't have summer plans, we're here.
And Christina, just jump in too, just honestly, in light of everything that's going on, our program's moved on and continued on because it's virtual. And really all of our facilitators are being asked, for guidance on how do we now move online for those who have never done it before at their institutions. Yeah. That's across Jordan, Iraq, and the US. And so we do have a responsibility, and engaging in these types of virtual exchanges, regardless of when it is, does help prepare faculty members and students for going global and going remote. So, definitely it is a responsibility that we have and to take that. So,
yeah. Agreed.
Corinne, do you mind if I ask you a different question?
Sure.
Is that okay? Yeah, we got a question, and others can answer as well too, is talk a little bit about the type of technology or platform that's required for the Global Nomads group program, sorry.
Yeah, it's kind of just a reliable internet connection. And since our online platform is Canvas or hosted on Canvas, you just need a device. So whether that's a computer or a tablet, iPad, or a mobile phone, students can join via their cell phones. There is a Canvas app, and so you can load the course just the same on your phone versus a computer.
Right.
And young people are very used to that, so
exactly.
It all works.
Makes it so accessible. It can be anywhere. Really. Yeah. Does anyone else want to respond to that?
I just want to quickly say about the technological requirements, and tie that to something that we learned from this coronavirus, and not necessarily wrong, but reminded of the digital divide that exists. That internet is something that we take for granted. None of us is using requiring very advanced technologies. All you need is a reliable internet connection and an audio and a video. But yet, as we saw across the world, as the campuses start closing, that not all universities, I mean, even within the United States, students have access outside of the school to a reliable internet or to a personal computer. That is the technological requirement we have, and I think we need to work on making sure that students have that access independently of the universities that they're in.
Agreed. Certainly, Aisha. How do we, being a virtual exchange program, how do you guys collectively kind of address the time zone differences? And then this can speak to the type of asynchronous or synchronous communication, but our participants are particularly interested in that.
I'll jump in and share that this is a challenge. This is definitely one of the things for our program, at least, because we don't have set times that the exchange happens, whether it's asynchronous or synchronous. This is something for the facilitator, the role of the facilitator, and each binational team they establish as they go throughout the challenge. And so it is definitely a challenge, but teams make it work. We have students that are willing to say, I'll meet a little bit earlier or a little bit later than what I would normally do for my normal course at the institution, and they make it work. Even though there's a 7-hour time difference, we actually have one of our binational teams is in Hawaii, and Iraq. And so there's a 12-hour time difference, and they are making it work and are just fantastic. And so it really does come down to the students learning how to be flexible, learning how to be adaptive to changing and willing to meet at odd hours and times that are not normal. But I will say that most of our teams, they make it work within, the normal course time during the week that fits with their normal classes. So.
Yeah, I just want to agree with Lindsay there. Flexibility and having, it's a challenge, but I think that's why U.S. participants love the Experiment Digital program, because they can incorporate it and they figure it out day or night, and as a group with our MENA students. So it is a challenge, but our facilitators are able to really figure it out, and they make it work, and day or night, whenever that might work for the group. So.
Definitely. I have a question for you, Aisha, a very specific one, which is, how do your programs facilitate a dialogue between youth from different cultures about subjects that could be sensitive and require some sort of in-depth understanding as part of the exchange?
So that's why, I think this goes back to the importance of using facilitators. And that our starting point is that every group has a legitimate interest in cultural expression. There's no right or wrong culture, and that our facilitators are there to provide an environment where everyone is feeling comfortable to go out from their comfort zone and express their true authentic beliefs and values and have a place to discuss them. And that's also why we use facilitators, because when it comes to, for instance, the question on, how do you separate racism from a legitimate expression of cultural identity? And in some cases, for instance, in social media, this is trying to be done by automated moderators. We use human facilitators. So I think there's a distinction in virtual exchange as we look to the future. Like, there's certain things we automate and we leave it to the algorithms. And then there's certain functions we give it to trained facilitators that has to apply human skills. Yeah. So that's that's really our approach here is to get the students to a place where they feel safe. There's room for trust, and then they can learn to this degree comfortably, so that these conversations are not just all nice and in agreement.
Yeah, definitely. I have so many more questions I want to get through without enough time, but there's two that I just want to touch on. One is, like, how is there an expectation? Are all exchanges conducted in English? And maybe actually, Corinne, you can answer this one, because I think it's particularly interesting, especially for like a younger group of participants. And then the other question that I think all of us should probably talk through is how to bring programs to the schools. We never really got to, you fill a join a program form, kind of what are the next steps? So maybe we can try to get through that question as well before we jump into our last question. Corinne? Again, the question was, talking about how to facilitate a virtual exchange if English is not your first language. How do you get around that? What are the tools that you use?
Yeah, so our programs are primarily conducted in English, but we do kind of offer supports for, English vocabulary, or offering the, mini lessons I've described. There'll be an audio version of the written. Sometimes that's easier. Or also just an Arabic version. So we kind of work with that, or our implementers will help with translation if needed. So really it's, you want to give that access to anyone and everyone. So we don't want English to be limiting that, but it is obviously, how the connection does happen. It's a give and take. So yeah.
Definitely. Okay, I think instead of following up about how to bring the programs to the schools, I think for everyone who's joining now, what we'll do is, I'm just gonna mention again the Join a Program form. If you go to the Stevens Initiative website, if you go to the Ways to Engage page, there is a pathway called Join a Program, and there's a form that you can complete, and you can select either one of these organizations that we're speaking about now, and then there will be a next step follow-up, which we will follow up with you about, since we don't have time to get into the details now. But that will be in an email after we kind of end this webinar. The question that I wanted to kind of close, I guess, on and ask each one of our panelists, and I'm so grateful for this conversation, is sort of a lightning round question, which is, what is your vision for the future of your program and broadly speaking, the future of virtual exchange? Christina.
Oh, yeah, I think about this a lot. Running a program called, the experiment's 88 years old. It's run since 1932. It's run an in-person exchange program every year, even during World War II. They went to Canada. So this is, as an institution, we're really pondering this question of like, this might be the first, is this the first summer we don't run in-person programs, right? We haven't faced a pandemic. We've faced wars. We've faced, a lot of different challenges. So at the same time, virtual exchange is so important to the work we do with the in-person exchanges. And I think it complements everything that we do. It gives access and diversity to those who are not able to afford to travel. And it's expensive. I mean, I will not lie, the experiment programs are expensive, and we provide as much scholarships as we can to travel abroad. But where we can complement the pre, the post, and introduce the concept of global dialogue and travel and community awareness, I think we can start with the virtual exchanges. And I think this is a great starting point. And I look forward to growing that within the experiment portfolio.
Absolutely.
I'll jump off that and just say, definitely, I love that word access. I think virtual exchange gives a very unique access to students who might not have the opportunity to be able to go to an in-person or do a study abroad. And honestly, when we think about our program too, we would love to see it scaled. Our vision is to see reaching more than 3,000 students and going beyond that. And we're targeting specifically youth that are often excluded from opportunities to exercise their, what we believe, innate entrepreneurial talent that exists within them. And this kind of program and others like that are virtual exchange, I believe are paving the way for innovative ways that we hope just moves through campuses and providing greater access for developing workforce skills, developing global competency and global citizenship. So I would definitely say access. Yeah.
I think there's something that's very groundbreaking about virtual exchange, which is that we're using technology to teach skills that we thought couldn't be done through technology before. And you mentioned them as being soft skills, and we can use technology. We were able to scale it for hard skills. You wanted to learn how to use a PowerPoint with technology, done. You can give it to millions at a very low cost. When it comes to teaching skills, relating human skills, related to social and emotional learning, first we had to fight a stigma around these skills that they were even relevant and important. I just learned that after, my daughter goes to second grade, and I think after third grade, they stopped providing grade card on social and emotional learning. If you think about it, we're left on our own devices. We just take that human skills for granted. We're like, okay, figure it out, learn it on your own. Even until recently, there was this belief that empathy was like skincare. You had to be born with good skin, otherwise you couldn't have it. You were either born with empathy or you didn't, and that excused especially a lot of men from feeling the pressure to learn and develop empathy. Yes, we can learn empathy. Yes, we can become more aware. Yes, we can understand how our brain works and know that why we stereotype. That stereotyping is a normal part of processing information, but we shouldn't stop there, that it needs to push towards critical thinking, and that's at which point we understand why we're stereotyping and we don't act on it. So these are all essential, important human skills that makes us human. Number one, we're going to need them in order to be able to compete with the jobs that the robots and the bots and the artificial intelligence are going to be after in the future. Number two, we need them for exactly situations like this, when there's a global pandemic and everybody is acting on their own, and there has to be a coming together of the scientists and the technologists and the policymakers and the community at every level, every function. And with virtual exchange, if we can provide this experience at a low cost and make it accessible and scale it, then we can change the world.
I think that's what we're all trying to do, Aisha, right? That's what we're all trying to do. That's why we're all here. Yes.
We can all change the world. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, collectively, definitely. And Corinne, please,
Yeah,
don't rush, by the way. We want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, similar sentiments to everyone. Our vision for virtual exchange is one that is accessible and inclusive, and every young person should have that opportunity. What we're trying to do now is offering our Student to World program for free, and it's rolling basis. So if you're ready to sign up now, we want to give that experience to as many young people as possible. And I think it's a beautiful thing when young people are learning through the eyes of each other. Really helps them to learn about themselves and realize, you know, we're all in this together. And hopefully be kind of leaders in their own, you know, physical communities right now, being isolated. I think all of us, you know, we're Zoom experts, or we're, you know, virtual call experts, and, you know, bringing that to different parts of our lives and sharing that. I think that's really cool, and I hope to see more and more of that.
Yes, definitely. I'm so grateful, you guys, for this conversation. I feel even more inspired, if that's even possible, after speaking to you all today. And I'm grateful for our participants for the thoughtful questions and everything. It's been such a good conversation. The last thing I think I'll just note to us all is that we're going to follow up with an email, like I said, with the ways to engage with the STEAMs initiative and with the amazing organizations that we had on today's webinar. So if you have any questions, definitely reach out to us, and we will be in touch. And with that, we'll end the webinar. Thank you so much again, everyone.